reviewing a deal? Need to know when you need to walk away? We got you. Doing loans,
making offers, making deals.
but are you doing it right?
Are you doing it right? How much should you offer on a house, Elizabeth?
The most. Every time. Just go full.
Just go full.
Over ask.
Oh, yeah, totally.
We're just giving away money over here.
And over asking.
Not in our world.
No, yeah, don't do that.
No.
Stop it. Stop doing that. That's a bad idea.
Slow down.
Yeah.
And I would say that's like one of the big things that I say to clients all the time, like be patient, slow down, come up with a system. So what we're going to talk about today is maximum allowable offer, which means, in short, what's the most you could pay for this property for it to make sense?
Yeah. I mean, and we're really talking about properties that have value add. So properties where you're going to go in with probably short-term money, maybe cash, but probably short-term hard money or private money. You're going to fix it up, and then you're either going to flip it and sell it, or you're going to refinance it and turn it into a long-term rental.
Yep. So fix and flip or burr. Those are, in its simplest sense. Technically, this could be used on just a basic purchase, but not as much.
Not as much. Yeah. So what's the formula?
So I think the biggest thing is slowing down your process and figuring out, okay, I've ran my comps.
Yeah.
I've figured out what I can sell this for. I've determined my after repaired value, ARV. So you're going to see ARV all the time. I always tend to want to slow down and figure out all these acronyms for our newbies out there. So, and your realtor can do this as well. So it's not that you personally have to do this. Use your partners. We say all the time, we'll take care of you on the lending side, but you need other people. And so your realtor can help you with, hey, as the property sits currently, it needs some TLC, it needs some love. But once it's all fixed up, this is what you can likely sell it for.
Yep.
Great. So we figured out that number. Then you need to figure out, okay, how much TLC are we talking?
Yeah.
How much rehab does this really need? Contractor, another person on your team, not for you to determine. Honestly, I mean, I think once you've seen enough properties, you can look at a property and be like, probably 35.
Yeah.
But let the experts do this. Don't try to do. Honestly, if you guess, I mean, for back of the napkin math, 100% you could do that. But once you're serious and want to make an offer on something, get an expert out there. Let's determine that number.
And you should be determining all of this stuff. You should be determining before you ever get into contract. There are too many times where we see people that get into contract. They're just like, I'm just going to get it because it's a great deal. Well, what makes it a great deal? Because I feel it in my bones. You know what that is? That's a symptom of the fever. Yeah. We talk about the fever a lot. We try and give you the ibuprofen of financial education to combat that. But that getting emotional about deals and getting all in your head, that's the way that you lose a bunch of money. And that's the way that you don't come back to us anymore. And we want you to come back a lot. We want you to come back over and over and over and be millionaires and do wonderful things, because then we get to do all your loans.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's possible with a system.
Yeah.
So we got our ARV.
Yep.
We got our rehab budget.
Yep.
We're likely going to give you a term sheet. So again, I always kind of use that. We need purchase price, rehab cost, ARV. I need 2 out of the 3.
Yep.
Once I have 2 out of 3, we're solid. So I'm going to tell you, technically, based on the lender's perspective, what the maximum purchase price is. But let me tell you, it doesn't mean that may be where you need to be. So when we say maximal allowable offer, that's for you to determine.
Yeah.
Not the lender. Because honestly, if we're going up to 75% of the after repair value and you're flipping that property, you're making very little.
Yeah.
And I say that relatively because that's the next thing that needs to be determined is how much profit do you want to make on this transaction?
Yep.
So if this is a flip, and we've talked about this in a previous video as well, everyone's time is worth something different. So a deal that I make $15K, you'd be like, hell no, I'm not doing that deal for $15K. I need to make 30 for this to make sense.
Yeah.
So that is for you and potentially your spouse or your business partner, whoever's part of this shenanigans. That's for you guys to determine. And then cost.
How much is it going to cost you? What are the loan costs? What are the closing costs? what are the holding costs, right? Because I mean, hard money, there's two avenues that you're going to use to fix something up. It's either going to be hard money or it's going to be private money. Private money is also often also called grandma money, right? So your grandma loves you and she wants you to do well and be a millionaire and do all these things, right? So she may not require you to make a monthly payment on that. But I'll tell you what, all these institutional hard money lenders, they do require that.
Yeah.
So you have to make a monthly payment. What is a good determination of what that monthly payment is? Figure about 1% of the loan amount. Could be a little bit less, but 1% of the total loan amount should be your monthly payment, and that should be something that factored into your costs.
Again, we want you to be able to do back of the napkin, quick and dirty. I've looked at these numbers very quickly and said yes or no to a deal.
Yep.
And so 1%, so $100,000 loan amount,
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month. Easy math. Now, again, it could be less. It likely will be less, depending on how interest is calculated, etc. We can get into those weeds with an actual term sheet. But for you to say, is this deal worth sending to Adam and having him go through all the steps? 1%. Simple.
Yeah.
So once you have all these numbers, though I'm going to give you what the lender will allow you to go up to, once you add in that profit number, that purchase price, that maximum purchase price that you can offer, and for this deal to still make sense for you, could change. What if the purchase price goes over $1?
Run. Yeah, I mean,
Can't say enough.
Well, because it's like, well, it's only over $1. Well, it's only over $100. Well, it's only over $1,000. Well, it's only over by $10,000. I mean, what's $10,000? So it's like, how much are you going to give yourself? Especially when you're new and you're starting out, you want to have a strong system and you want to stick to that system because it's the system that's going to carry you through and help you avoid getting emotional and will protect you. And it's your investment theory. It's your investment theory that is really what is one of the most important things.
Yeah, I mean, it's your safety blanket. I mean, honestly, and yes, I would say for newbies, it's essential. It's if you don't have it, establish it today, and eventually. Maybe you don't carry that blanket around as much with experience. But even then, I mean, some of the even bigger time investors, as soon as they get outside of their system, they start picking up deals that are not favorable.
Yep.
And everyone eventually does.
Yeah.
But if your first deal is shoddy, you may never make it to deal 2. Now, if deal number 5, 6, something like that, becomes a little bit of a sideways deal, well, you've learned from those other deals, and you're like, oh, okay. Let's redo the system. Let's tighten up, etc. But this has to be very systematic. Even when Brooke and I started investing, my wife's a home stager, so she loves the design aspect of a house. I was like, honey, we don't fall in love with houses. This is not our primary residence.
Yep.
We don't get warm and fuzzy.
No.
These are business decisions. Be serious about it. If the business of this property makes sense, we do the deal.
Yeah. If
the business of this property doesn't make sense, we run. Simple.
Yeah.
And it needs to be black and white.
It does. I would say, or rehab gray. But so I would say, what we're talking about is the initial analysis. I think sometimes people can get too into their head about investment theory once they're already in a deal, and that's a different kind of story. So I'll share a quick little story about a client of mine. It was his first, it was an odyssey. We spent a year working on this together. So I helped him take down the property with hard money, and he then spent a good 6 months rehabbing it. And then we got to the back end, and he was so excited to refinance it so that he would finally be a landlord and finally have his rental and his rental income. So we go through the entire process, which was painful for a variety of reasons, but mostly related to the property. And it came down to closing, and that was also kind of challenging. But we sent this notary to his house at like 9 o'clock at night because that was like the only time that he could sign. And he didn't sign. I'm like, why are you not signing this loan document? And the reason was because he did one last calculation on the Bigger Pockets calculator for ARV and for all things, right? And it didn't pencil. And so what his solution in his mind that he thought he should do is, instead of refinancing the property, he was going to sell it at a loss and eat that loss, and that's the way that it is, and so forth. And it's like, oh, dude, what are you doing? You've got an asset that at least is going to appreciate.
Yeah.
So here he was in the middle of a not great deal, but you know, just because the patient has cancer doesn't mean you kill him, right? You've got to, I
Yeah.
mean, you give them some palliative care there,
Yeah.
right? Like there's going to be some appreciation, you know, rents go up, they don't go down, you know. So, fast forward a year later, he called me recently and he was like, "Man, I'm so glad that you told me to keep the thing." So because rents had gone up, appreciation had gone up. So he was super happy because now he was in a better spot, which leads to another lesson, and that is time heals kind of all real estate deals.
Yeah. It's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you want as many exit strategies as possible. So even our clients that are going to flip a property, you should keep your exit strategy of a rental on the back burner at all times. I have a client right now that I'm hoping in the next day or two I get a text that says, yes, we're refining, but he's been in the same spot where I was like, you know, don't drop that price anymore unless you're confident that I'm going to sell this thing, because he's going to get himself in a spot where he can't refi. But yeah, I mean, I think
And real quick on that. So why should he not drop that price?
so as soon as the purchase price lowers, now the house is not worth as much.
Yeah.
And I think people forget about that.
Yeah.
If you can't sell at 250, it is now worth
250. Yeah.
So if you drop it to 240, now it's potentially not even worth 240.
Because that's all public. And that appraiser, when he goes
see
out to do that refi because, oh man, I couldn't sell the house, so now I need to refi. Well, it's worth 250. Well, what did you have it listed at? Well, it was listed at 240. Did it sell? Well, no, it didn't. Well, guess what? It's not worth 250.
Yeah. We'll be happy if it comes in at 240.
Yeah.
Like, don't get surprised. And then again, on a rate and term refinance, we can go up to 80%. And so I kept telling him, I was like, this is your, and I tell almost all clients, like, hey, I know, you're going to flip this thing. You're going to make a bunch of money. Like, I want that for you 100%. But if you get to the point where the purchase price is at X, this is when you call me. This is when we talk and say, do we keep it as a rental? Do we just like pull, you know, the rug out from underneath this one and we just hold it? Like you said, time heals all real estate deals. And so sometimes you're going to have to hold on to some of these. So you discussed the profit that you make on a flip. This can also work on a BRRRR. So how much are you willing to leave in the transaction? I think we've talked a couple of times about, you know, honestly, perfect BRRRRs. Are we seeing a ton of them?
Not really.
Do we see them? Yes. So I don't want to.
But they're rare.
I don't want them to seem like unicorns, but at the same time, they're not the normal. So 5 to 10% of the after repaired value is a more realistic contribution to be left in a BRRRR. And then making sure also cash flow makes sense. That's also for you to determine. I would say most of our clients are around $300 a month in cash flow per door. And then if this is just basic deal, I'm buying a turnkey property, I'm putting 20% down, you just need to make sure that that cash flow pencils out as well for your maximal allowable offer. Yeah. So it's just systems. I can't say enough. If you have the systems in place, the systems will protect you from getting in a deal that bites you in the tail end and maybe puts a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth. We don't want that.
Nope.
On to the next deal.